Now, South Africa's case before the International Court of Justice is damning. Over the course of 3 hours, as we've said, lawyers for the country presented a litany of atrocities committed by Israel and Gaza, and the strength of South Africa's case has the Israeli government rattled, and not without reason. On the eve of the trial, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, posted this.
I want to make a few points absolutely clear. Israel has no intention of permanently occupying Gaza or displacing its civilian population. Israel is fighting Hamas terrorists, not the Palestinian population. And we are doing so in full compliance with international law.
That was far from the only piece of new public relations content that Israel has put out as the ICJ hearing gets underway. As South Africa began presenting their case, Israel's official X account posted this message from Israeli Defense Force spokesperson Daniel Hagari.
We do security checks on humanitarian aid trucks for weapons before they enter Gaza. We have increased our screening capacity considerably. We have been screening aid trucks faster than aid organizations are able to get them into Gaza. Unfortunately, for weeks there have been long lines of humanitarian aid trucks sitting, waiting to get to the people of Gaza, who truly need this critical aid. We are trying to assist aid organizations with their distribution problems by holding daily meetings with key stakeholders to help them solve problems, provide expertise, and find practical solutions to the problems they face. We do this because our war is against Hamas, not against the people of Gaza. We recognize that aid distribution in a war zone is challenging, also for us, which is why we coordinate routes for aid trucks, we coordinate daily humanitarian corridors, and implement specific tactical pauses in our operations to support the aid distribution efforts.
Martin Griffiths, the UN's humanitarian chief, disagrees with Hagari's claims that Israel is trying very hard to get aid into Gaza. On the 29th of December, he posted this. You think getting aid into Gaza is easy. Think again. 3 layers of inspections before trucks can even enter. Confusion and long queues. A growing list of rejected items. A crossing point meant for pedestrians, not trucks. Another crossing point where trucks have been blocked by desperate, hungry communities. A destroyed commercial sector. Constant bombardments. Poor communications. Damaged roads. Convoys shot at. Delays at checkpoints. A traumatized and exhausted population crammed into a smaller and smaller sliver of land. Shelters which have long exceeded their full capacity. Aid workers themselves displaced, killed. This is an impossible situation for the people of Gaza and for those trying to help them. The fighting must stop. Well, other Israeli politicians have been quick to respond to the beginning of the ICJ hearing. Israel's Minister for National Security, the far-right MP Itamar Ben-Gvir, said this. 78 years after the terrible Holocaust that the German Nazis inflicted on us, and 3 months after the Nazis from Gaza added to the massacre of us, the world joins the theatre of the absurd and spreads blood plots against the state of Israel. We protect our citizens, our women, our children, and spread lies and abomination against us in the world. Never before have so many scoundrels joined such vile lies. Ben-Gvir has more reason than most to try and discredit South Africa's case. That's because a major part of it involves showing that Israeli politicians, military leaders, and officials intended to commit genocide against Palestinians. That aspect of the case is based largely on things they've said. Like these words that came out of Ben-Gvir's mouth in November and which are actually cited in South Africa's case. When we say Hamas should be destroyed, it also means those who celebrate, those who support, and those who hand out candy. They're all terrorists, and they should also be destroyed. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has also responded to today's events at The Hague, saying this. Today we saw an upside-down world. Israel is accused of genocide while it is fighting against genocide. The hypocrisy of South Africa screams to the heavens. Where was South Africa's when millions of people were killed or torn from their homes in Syria and Yemen by whom? By partners of Hamas. The US is sending them the finest of crack. Kieran, is Israel running scared from the ICJ case?
Yes, in short. It speaks to the catharsis that you were talking about earlier, I think. It is running scared, and it's running scared. I'm afraid to say it's a... I'm just going to say something unfiltered. It's a society, unfortunately, that has driven itself mad. It's driven itself mad by appealing to the most right-wing elements, and I suppose that in itself inheres in the need to displace a population and then impound them within a security state. As it's done that, there's been an incentive for politicians in Israel to ensure that their rhetoric becomes further and further, goes further and further to the right. Nonetheless, Israel is a state in the world. And so it has to play a two-level game, to borrow a fairly dry American political scientist Robert Putnam's phrase. It has to play a two-level game. It has to, or at least it had to, somehow seem as though it fitted into the comity of nations. It wanted to trade. It wanted to do tourism. It wanted to be integrated into the West. It wanted to be considered a liberal democracy. It wanted to have its beaches put on postcards and so on. You can't, I'm afraid, have it both ways when the two things become so polarized as they have in Israel because of the rightward turn in Israeli society. And yet, because it's a political culture and to some extent the society that's driven itself mad, it didn't realize that it was doing this. It didn't realize for a long time that it was totally alienating itself or isolating itself. I really believe that. I think it thought it could get away with this ad infinitum. And there seems to be this kind of Millwall-esque, everybody hates us and we don't care thing about it. But the quotes, the clips that you've played demonstrate that it is scared, and also, saying that the South African legal team is the legal arm of Hamas. I mean, that just whacks of desperation. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, Millwall, if Man City suddenly started sending them millions, billions every month and fielding them their best players for when they needed them, I think. It's just fascinating watching Israeli officials rub up against reality outside their safe little bubble of yeses from the Western international community. Suddenly they're getting a lot of no's.